Joe Biden had been up there giving that speech, men in white coats would have interrupted him and carted him off and put him in a padded wagon. I thought today I would wake up and the TV would be full of like doctors talking about Donald Trump's cognitive decline. I thought it would be full of Republicans hanging their heads in shame like Democrats did. Joe Biden had a bad 90-minute debate. He said it's one episode. That's what we've seen so far. What we saw yesterday was a replay of Trump's 90-minute constant rallies. It's too bad the bandage was just over his ear. It should have been over his mouth.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Leftist Losers Show, where we point out all of the losers of the left. And today I got a clip from The View for you guys. The ladies of The View, man, they just cannot help themselves. They are always making themselves look like fools, and today, or I should say the day they recorded this, was no different. Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View, I don't know if they're the dumbest people on TV or if their producers are just the dumbest people involved with TV, but these guys, and I should say these gals, push ideas and narratives that make zero sense, but constantly inflame hateful rhetoric and push the culture war forward, and it's absolutely disgusting. It's only been a week since Trump was almost killed, and these ladies are already pushing narratives forward to put all of the blame on Trump and Trump supporters and try to say that these people are the most evil, vile people in the country, and it's absolutely disgusting what the people of The View are doing. Absolutely disgusting. We couldn't even get at least 2-3 weeks without them already trying to say that Trump and his people are the problem. And we wonder why, that 20-year-old that was deranged and crazy enough to go do what he did. And it's because of organizations like The View pushing this hateful rhetoric. And so here they are doing it once again. So I'm going to go ahead and start this clip for you guys and let you guys point and laugh for yourselves, because it's pretty disgusting and these people need to be shamed for these terrible ideas.
Well, Trump took the stage last night as the headline act of the RNC, where he accepted the nomination from the party. He claimed to have ripped up his original speech. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. He claimed to have ripped up his original speech like Nancy did. Remember when she ripped up his State of the Union speech? He claimed that he ripped up his own speech to focus on a united message after the assassination attempt against him. But his spiritual awakening didn't last long. Watch.
I felt very safe because I had God on my side. I felt that. If I had not moved my head at that very last instant, the assassin's bullet would have perfectly hit its mark. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Every week they get another subpoena from the Democrats, crazy Nancy Pelosi, the whole thing, just boom, boom, boom. If you took the 10 worst presidents in the history of the United States, think of it, the 10 worst, added them up, they will not have done the damage that Biden has done. It's nice to get along with somebody who has a lot of nuclear weapons or otherwise, isn't it?
We need a few laughs here.
It's pretty despicable, but typical of people like these Democratic elites that, they've been going after Trump for years now, calling him the most disgusting things possible, and now persecuting him and his entire family for charges that are completely bogus. And he's not allowed to talk about it, folks. That's literally the point she's trying to make. She's trying to say that his unity speech didn't matter because he immediately started talking bad about the Democrats and them going after him, when all he was bringing up was the fact that these cases are bullshit. And they are bullshit, and that's been proven. That's why they keep getting thrown out by the Supreme Court and other lower courts. And it's funny because she's frustrated and trying to claim that he's the problem for pointing it out. Because remember, when the Democrats go after you, you're not allowed to scream help. You're not allowed to point it out. You either just take it or you win and you move forward. They don't want you talking about it because they know that it's bogus. They know that these cases are a joke and were a joke because now they're gone. And they don't like that. They don't want that narrative out there, so they won't want you talking about it. You're not allowed to talk about it, or you are evil.
Oh, my God. He went on like that for 92 minutes, and he told 25 verified lies. Only 20 lies in 90.
Yeah, real quick to interrupt again. Yeah, it's real funny that he went on for 92 minutes. The one thing that their candidate couldn't do. And it's hilarious that they were screaming for Joe Biden to drop out because he couldn't talk for more than 2 seconds without gaffes like crazy. But Trump talks for 2 hours and it's horrible. Oh, sorry, an hour and a half, and it's so terrible. It's so awful. He was so boring. He talked for so long with only like one gaffe, maybe. Wow, that's just terrible. What a boring, joke of a man. No, these people are clowns, man. They're clowns. They wish their candidate could talk for an hour and a half. I say candidate since Joe Biden, by the way, dropped out yesterday. But still, it's hilarious. These people are clowns, man. They will say whatever they have to make sure that their people stay in power, and it's an absolute joke.
2 minutes. Wow, he is a changed man. Yeah. So is that speech going to unite the country?
So I need to own something. I was skeptical of this media narrative of he's a changed man, it's going to be a unifying speech, but I made a very bad prediction. I was like, surely he can get through a telepromptered speech without invoking Hannibal Lecter. I was wrong. He brought up our friend Hannibal Lecter. Listen, this to me underscored the fact that Donald Trump is an infinitely beatable candidate. This is somebody who's polarizing, he's divisive, and I also want to mention, with due respect, knowing what he went through, he's not as sharp as he once was. It was meandering. He was losing his train of thought. It didn't make a ton of sense. But the reality is, Democrats are currently running the 1%.
No, actually, his speech was fantastic, and people were cheering him on because they were saying that this is the most presidential they've ever seen him because he was keeping a level head and he wasn't super, divisive this time. And the reason that she can say things like this and get away with it is because most likely 99% of the viewers of The View, people who aren't like me watching to point and laugh, don't actually watch the RNC or any of the speeches. They're not gonna, they couldn't dare touch a Trump speech because they'd probably throw up and put themselves into a tizzy and cry in the corner. So she can go on here and say whatever she wants about Trump's speech and insult him and say that he didn't make any sense and he looked like an idiot because her viewers are going to eat that up and just believe it because they're not actually going to go watch the speech themselves. If they went and watched the speech themselves, they'd probably end up voting for Trump, to be honest. So it's just, this is the problem, right? This is the problem we have with the mainstream media. People think because they're a big institution with lots of money that they must be telling the truth at all times and that they should be believed, when the reality is they're spreading hateful narratives that only divide us further. And people really need to stop giving these people a platform. I know I'm doing that, but they have a much bigger platform than me. I'm simply pointing up at the ivory tower that this lady and the other ladies of The View are sitting in and saying that tower is disgusting and should be torn down and removed because it's not benefiting society. It only is hindering us.
Person who seems incapable of beating him. And I think these conversations that are happening around Biden are going to continue because people saw that and they said, wait, we can beat this guy. Why aren't we? Why is he winning in every battleground state? So I'm just going to sit back and watch what happens in the coming days.
I really want to see the copy of the speech that was ripped up because if that was the unifying one, I might have missed the message in the 90-minute show. That is a Broadway show, and they literally... And it started
the speech that he ripped up they're referring to it was the speech that he had prepared before he was shot. So again, they're trying to spin this like, oh, he had a unifying speech and he tore it up and was so angry that he was shot that he decided to start spreading hate and divisiveness. That's not true at all. His speech just didn't incorporate anything regarding to the assassination attempt, and so he rewrote it to accommodate the new information and new situation that had occurred. Because if he didn't speak about that his first time talking after almost being killed, people would want to know and have questions. So he had to rewrite his speech.
Give you an intermission in the middle. I don't know what a lot of that was, and read the room, because if people that dress up like they're going to a parade in red, white, and blue show up and they're bored, like the whole room checked out. It was like, these are your people. What's happening?
No, the room did not check out, lady. Actually, they were very, very, very interested in hearing what Trump had to say, considering he almost was just killed. Okay? They were trying to be respectful for the fact that the man came on stage looking emotional and looking heartfelt, like he was speaking from his heart, which I think he was. But these people have to make Trump to be evil Hitler, the cold man who has no emotions and doesn't care about people, because he can't. People aren't allowed to connect with him. That's the problem, right? The reality was, if you actually watched the speech, the crowd was being quiet when Trump was talking about what had happened to him. And they were trying to be respectful and not interrupt him, because at that point in time, it was a somber sounding speech. And the point was to listen to the story, especially during the part where he was giving a tribute to Corey, the guy who was killed. Like, that's not a time when you should be interrupting and screaming like an idiot. You should be listening and let Trump speak and hear what he has to say. People were still very interested at the end of that 2 hours if you actually watch the speech and the coverage. This lady, again, they're lying because they know that the people who are watch The View don't watch anything else and are just watching this because they're probably folding laundry or something stupid at home. And so they'll hear this and then they'll go talk to somebody at work or something, or call up their ladies at the knitting club and talk about, did you see what The View said about Trump? And oh my God, his speech was terrible. No, it's not true. The reality is the RNC was probably the best RNC that they've had in decades, and Trump is killing it in the polls. And they're desperate. They're desperate, and these are the lies they're going to keep pushing.
Happened here.
Well, he falls asleep during his own speeches. That's what it looked like. Like he was.
Yeah, but it was like the overall message of this speech was that there's not a new message. That's all I really took from it.
Well, listen, I do think this should be a unity speech, and I think this should be a unity speech for Democrats who should realize that they have got to unify and they've got to do everything they can, Democrats and sane independents, to beat this man.
Yeah, the reason she's saying that is because they don't actually want unity. What they want is everyone who disagrees with them to bend the knee and submit to their authority. Because the Democratic Party and these people, these Democratic elites, they want the world to be the way they want it, and anyone who thinks differently should be put in a gulag, or at the very least kneecapped so they have to look up at them and do whatever they tell them. That's what these people want. That's why she's saying, "Oh, we don't want a unity speech from Trump. We want a unity speech from Democrats," because they want the Democrats to be the ones in charge, and they want to make sure that what it comes down to is they don't actually want unity. That's all that matters. If they say that they're fighting for democracy, they're not. They're fighting for their people to stay in power. If they say that Trump's a threat to democracy, democracy is just a word for power at this point for the Democrats. And other than the fact that we're not a democracy to begin with, we're a republic. That it all just goes together. If you look at what they're saying, it's dog whistles for their base. They just want to maintain power. That's all this is about. And this is the narratives that they are trying to push to make sure that happens.
If you had Trump amnesia, this should have cured you. If Joe Biden had been up there giving that speech, men in white coats would have interrupted him and carted him off and put him in a padded wagon. I thought today I would wake up and the TV would be full of like doctors talking about Donald Trump's cognitive decline. I thought it would be full of Republicans hanging their heads in shame like Democrats did. Joe Biden had a bad 90-minute debate. He said it's one episode. That's what we've seen so far. What we saw yesterday was a replay of Trump's 90.
And there it is, folks. Look at her saying the only episode that Biden had was the debate, and that's a joke. We've been talking about his cognitive decline from before he even started his campaign running. When we were all talking about whether he would be involved in the Democratic primary back when Trump was still president, people were wondering if he was even mentally up to the task. And the reality is he wasn't even back then. I mean, he was definitely way better than he is now, but of course he was. He's got, whatever condition he has, or just the fact that he's extremely old. Of course, 4 years later, he's going to be worse off. But even back then, he was gaffing like crazy, and nobody was showing up to his little rallies that he was doing. And in fact, he was barely even holding rallies. And to be fair, yes, COVID was still fresh in everybody's mind and still raging, but Trump was still out there giving rallies. There were other candidates out there still having events. Biden was hiding in the basement. That's what everyone was joking about. He's running his campaign from his basement, and it's just insane. Every time we point gaffes out. Excuse me. They put that in the past tense. Every time that we had pointed out gaffes during his entire presidency, they would constantly gaslight the entire country and say, that's not actually the issue. He's got a stutter. He's got this. He's got a cold. That's not true. But as soon as the Democratic primaries are over and RFK can't be voted for anymore and other candidates can't be voted for anymore by regular Democrats, all of a sudden, they have a debate with Trump, they schedule one, and they just immediately flip a light switch, and Biden is awful and must be removed. They knew the entire time. Was it the New York Times? I forget who. I think it was the New York Times. But one of the establishment organizations wrote an article back before he won the presidency saying, "Stay alive, Joe Biden. We just need your corporeal form." Literally referencing the fact that the man is mentally not there, and they just needed him to get into power so they could bring his staffers online and allow the Democrats to control the executive branch. That's all they cared about. They knew Biden was a puppet then. He's a puppet now. And the only reason they waited till the debate to try to push him out was because they did not want another Bernie Sanders event. They did not want to have the people vote for a candidate that was not in the establishment's direct control or pushing ideas that hurt the establishment. Because Bernie Sanders is 1,000% establishment. 1,000%. But he was pushing forward ideas that were not beneficial to the establishment, and that's why they did not want him. He was pushing a populist movement on the Democratic side, and so they had to remove him, and they can't let that happen again. That's why they waited. That's my theory, but I think that makes the most sense. If you look at the incentive trail and why they would do what they did, that makes the most sense. Why they would all of a sudden stop gaslighting the country, it's because they had to make sure the primaries were over so regular people couldn't vote. And now they're pushing the narrative on all the late talk shows like Jimmy Kimmel and all them, saying that we should just let the Democratic elites just bring all the candidates forward at the convention and let them pick who's the best candidate. Let the best candidate win, because they want the primary system to go away so regular people don't have a voice. Because it's not about democracy, folks. Remember, democracy just means power. It's about power, and that's all they care about.
90-minute constant rallies. It's too bad the bandage was just over his ear. It should have been over his mouth.
I don't even know what to say, because I did believe that, you know, the assassination attempt would change him. He did invoke God a lot, and I didn't understand. You know, I just thought he would be changed, but it felt so performative to me. It really did, and it felt beneath the dignity of a national convention from the nominee of a major party.
It's absolutely disgusting, folks. This guy almost just got his head blown off, and I'm sorry to be graphic about it, but I'm just frustrated with these people. This guy was almost killed, and the only thing that saved him was the fact that he turned his head like 2 inches to the right, and that caused his head to be just off alignment with the shooter's, where the shooter was aiming, to where the bullet only grazed his ear instead of completely braining him. And this lady wants to say that it's below him and beneath him to invoke God in that situation. I'm sorry, it's insane that Trump was even willing to come to work on Monday. If a Democrat was shot or somebody on the left was shot, they'd be hiding in their safe space for years. They probably would never come out. But Trump showed back up on Monday for work because he understands that this is more important than him. That's why he raised his fist and yelled, "Fight." Because in that moment, he realized when he was down on his arms and knees in that picture, that famous picture of him, almost looked like he was praying. Reality is he was just ducking and covering. I'm sure it went through his head that if I don't stand up and show the people that this is more important, it's about them and the country and not me, then I'm not going to inspire them as a leader. And that's what makes him a good leader, is the fact that he was still thinking about that and not himself. And these people are insane and disgusting for saying that it's terrible that he invoked God and it's fake and performative. I'm sorry. If the man almost just died and a miracle basically saved him, really don't think that he might, be like, oh, I wonder if, God was involved. It might make him question. I don't know how religious Trump is. I haven't looked into that, but I would certainly make me question things for sure. So it's just, these people are disgusting, man. It's absolutely disgusting that she would say this.
Do you think he united people?
No, the poor teleprompter guy, you guys.
I mean, he
had
said
to sit on something for 6 minutes and try to catch on to where he was.
I think
that guy's definitely not coming back to work.
The first 15 minutes was powerful, reflecting on the assassination.
Yes, and people were crying in the
but it
audience.
just declined from there.
You know what he said? He said he referred to crazy Nancy Pelosi. He falsely accused Democrats of cheating in 2020. He called it the China virus again. So he
not that old
did that
saw.
again.
They're still pretending like we don't already know that the virus came out of China, right? Like, yes, Trump puts a goofy title on it because Trump's basically a stand-up comedian, to be honest. But yeah, we know that the virus came out of China. The shitty thing is we know that we funded it. Dr. Fauci's been caught in that. The NIH was giving funding to the organization that was overseeing the funds for these programs over in China. And the reason they were doing it in China is because the gain-of-function research is outlawed in the United States. Like it's not allowed to be conducted here. So the loophole is to give funding to companies, which then give funding to other companies, which then fund these programs in countries like China that don't care and don't have a lot of regulations with regards to this stuff because they would rather just have the data. They're not worried about safety. They don't care about their people. They're an authoritarian dictatorship. And so there you go. Yeah, we funded it. We basically, he can call it the China virus because it came from China, but the reality is that we pretty much made it ourselves, and it's crazy. But they're going to keep pushing the narrative because again, the whole point of The View is to protect the narratives of the Democratic Party so that they can try and maintain power and keep people asleep and believing they're garbage.
And he talked about an invasion at the southern border. I mean, you talk about, it was a xenophobic, ugly vision of America speech. It is beneath the dignity of the office of the
He said that the
president.
next Republican National Convention is going to be held in Venezuela because it's safe.
Well, it's a dictatorship.
He did over 20 lies during the 92 minutes. And I go back to where I was 3 weeks ago. This is a binary choice, and the choice could not be more simple. It is between a good, frail, old man surrounded by a steady, experienced team, or a crazy, loco old man surrounded by a bunch of criminals and hooligans. You guys choose.
Yeah, surrounded by criminals and hooligans. I'm sorry, the criminals are actually in the government currently. Biden, there's so many scandals around his family, and he's surrounded by his family constantly. And the fact that well, let's look at Mayorkas wouldn't come to Congress, and what's his face? Was being held in contempt at Congress, but they wouldn't vote on it because, the establishment protects itself. These people are ridiculous. He didn't lie. The reason he made the Venezuela joke is because all the South American countries and other countries around the world are emptying out their prisons and sending the criminals up to our southern border to come into the States. That's why he's calling a lot of the illegal immigrants criminals. Well, they're all technically criminals because they all broke the law to come in illegally. But what he's referring to is the fact that he knows, because it happened while he was president, that these countries see with the border open and they go, well, we could keep spending money on these prisoners in our prisons, or we could just say, hey, we'll let you out if you go to America. And why would the prisoner say no to that? America's better in a lot of ways than their country. So, of course, they're going to be like, I get out of prison and you're going to send me up there? Hell yeah. It saves their country money. Look at the incentives. These people are ridiculous. But the reason he made the Venezuela comment was because he was referencing the fact that all these criminals have been kicked out of that country. And so now it's relatively safe. Yeah, it's still a dictatorship and they're starving. It's still terrible. But it was a joke. He's a stand-up comedian half the time when he does these speeches. These people are clowns, man. I apologize for getting so worked up to you viewers. It's just, man, these people they're so frustrating because they have to be like the dumbest people on TV or they're evil, right? Those are the two options. Either these people are really stupid and they just say whatever their producers tell them to say, which honestly I would believe that. Or they know that they're lying and are spreading this bullshit narrative, and so that makes them evil because they're actively trying to decept all of their viewers. They're actively trying to pull a hood over their heads and lie to them, and that's disgusting. And this is why The View, will hopefully cease to exist in the next few years because their ratings are going down the toilet, just like CNN and all the other establishment, news I don't want to call them news because they're not news. All the narrative machines of the establishment on TV are slowly disappearing. And you look at their viewership and like where their demographics are. A lot of these people are watched by the older demographic, and those people, I'm not trying to be morbid, but they're going the way of Joe Biden. I mean, everybody dies eventually, right? So as the older population starts to go, disappear, like these younger people aren't watching these shows. They're not, right? Other than us pointing and laughing at them. So hopefully The View will go away because this stuff needs to stop. Like, these people need to stop. They're pouring gasoline on the fire. Trump was just almost assassinated a week ago, and they're already fanning the flames and lying to everybody, and that's terrible. Anyways, guys, if you liked my commentary and enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe and comment down below. If you want to tear me apart in the comments and tell me my content sucks, I'm fine with that too. I appreciate the engagement either way. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.